The next generation of philanthropists and thinkers to my left are extraordinary resources for each of us and all of us in this room to better understand what's top of mind for the next generation of philanthropists moving forward. How do we better collaborate across generations, but given their insights and perspectives, how does this shed light on the work that we should be focusing on and evolving moving forward?
I have dedicated my life to a philanthropic path that is actually based on a market approach to meeting the needs of philanthropists. And all of that came from my personal experience. I'm blessed to be the daughter of two extraordinary philanthropists. I lost my late mother when I was 25 years old, and through that experience, I made a commitment to myself, to her, and to God that I would dedicate my life to living one of service. However, at that moment in 1995, when I was just starting business school, there were very few resources, no organizations, very little reading material to empower me as a philanthropist to make my giving matter more. And so over the course of my career in building organizations and teaching strategic philanthropy at Stanford Graduate School of Business, I found myself constantly surrounded by ordinary Americans living with extraordinary generosity. And I realized a few years ago that we're living in a time where the general population has come to associate the word philanthropy with something very exclusionary and very elitist. And when we look at the stats, when we look at the fact that 3/4 of American households made a financial gift last year, 63 million Americans volunteered their time. The average philanthropic gift was in fact about $2,000 per household. This is telling us that philanthropy is in fact being driven by the 99% as opposed to the 1%. And so I saw a need to formally make philanthropy more embracing.
You mentioned a huge sense of urgency for each of us in this room to capitalize on the time, resources, energy, compassion, maybe not financial resources, to create change makers in the children and the generations that are encompassed in this room. A real sense of urgency to pick up the phone. Even John said, don't wait to the next family meeting. Don't wait to the next time you see the kids. Pick up the phone today and talk about how they can become leaders of impact.
I think that part of it was having a father who had a very traditional sense of philanthropy. It's do well, and then at some point down the road when you're comfortable enough, you can start giving back and developing new innovations or sustainable change for your communities or the things that really matter to you. I had a friend who was a geneticist who had retired, and he went to Jones Beach Theater because he loves rock music. He's hanging out backstage and he sees all this food in the green room and in the concession food. It's like, what is going to happen with this at the end of the show? So he asked Steven Tyler if he could take his food and actually feed someone around the corner. So he did, and actually there was a long line of people, and he actually ended up feeding about 150 people that night. So Sid went back the next night, and he went back the night after that. He did this an entire summer, and then he branched out to schools. He's been giving a lot of food away, which saves the anti-poverty agencies a tremendous amount of funds that would ordinarily be used to fund food acquisition. So I came out of college, I was volunteering with Sid's organization, and I was in DC doing research on a book. And I said, gosh, the Library of Congress is a great place, but there's so much food being thrown out every day. Why can't the government do the same thing that rock bands and sports teams and schools do? So Sid's like, I don't know, they should. So we sat down together and we actually wrote a bill which passed in 2008 as the Federal Food Donation Act. So that's providing access to food resources to over 36 million Americans today. So that's pretty awesome. And what that showed me is like, you really, like, if we had sat around trying to figure out how do you get food to these people and pay for it, it's going to take years. So the urgency is for sure here, and especially when you want to get kids involved and younger people involved. They're ready to do this. They're like, that idealism is not nonsense. It's real, and it's achievable.
In talking to all of you, you've mentioned that this desire to give back, to be leaders of impact, is ingrained at a very early age. All of you have been very, very fortunate to have mentors in that process, but you've all taken untraditional approaches to establishing those passions. And I think all of us in the room are thinking of, how can we be better philanthropists? How can the next generation, our next generation, be more powerful? How can we understand that?
Philanthropy really comes from the heart, and it comes from, I think, an experience that you had either as a child or sometime in adulthood, or maybe many experiences over time that make you passionate and want to give back to an issue or to help a certain population or give back in some way. And what I often see is families who've created wealth trying to get their children to give back to the same things they want to give to. So, you know, someone thinks education was the thing that made them successful, so they want their kids to get involved in giving in education. But the kids have different passions, and they want to go out and do their own thing. And so what I really think is a better route is to help those children find their own passions and help their children create their own paths. I know my story is, shows just that. I went off to go work with rural farmers and rural subsistence farming families in Mexico. In working with rural farmers, I saw how the climate changing was affecting them, and they were not able to grow the crops that they needed to live from. And I thought, you know, if I don't go work on this climate change thing, I can teach these farmers how to farm all day long and it won't get anyone anywhere. And so, you know, 10 years later, I've circled back and I'm working with my family's foundation on climate change issues specifically. But I needed that own personal experience to spur me into caring about it.
With your tremendous insights, what do you think the greatest challenges this next generation is facing?
Everyone here has to wrestle with moving whatever organization, group we're a part of, from the world of institutions and repetition to this very different world. And you heard everyone here is wrestling with that issue. So that's one element. The other element is that we have to, I think, commit to everyone being a change maker. It's not gender, it's not race, it's whether or not you're a change maker. And that's true for our whole society. If we don't make sure that every child, every young person is a change maker before they're an adult, they know that, they have the skills, and we don't have 50 years, maybe 10, 15. It's also ethically wrong. Think of what it's like if you don't have the skills that everyone here has to be a change maker, to be able to express creativity, the ability to give. There's nothing more important in life. Well, if you don't have that, there's something profoundly wrong, and we are denying that right to most young people today, even in this country and around the world, and we have to change that.